Hello, friends. It's Friday, which means we are 2 days away from Sunday, which means another digital gathering is just around the corner. And this one is going to be a fun one. They're all fun for me, hopefully for you too. But this one is going to be really cool because we pick back up our practices conversation this weekend. We're going to be looking at the practice of prayer, which feels extremely timely, as really all of our practices have been. But again, given our moment, it seems like prayer, a great practice for us to be engaging right now. This is the fourth part of the series. We've looked at Sabbath, we've looked at fasting, we've looked at silence and solitude, and now we're going to again look at prayer, which will sort of cap part one of this conversation. We'll have a break for the summer and then pick it back up again in the fall. Now, throughout this convo, I have shared with you a bunch of different resources and primarily books that I think are super helpful to this conversation. And so I want to do that again this morning as we end our week together. One of the most important, influential characters in the spiritual formation, disciplines, practice conversation is this man named Dallas Willard. Dallas has passed away, but during his lifetime, just again, a monumentally influential voice for the church. He wrote what I think is the most influential book of the last 20 to 25 years in the Western church in particular. It's this book called The Divine Conspiracy. We referenced it several times in our Matthew series because the whole book is basically his take on the Sermon on the Mount. But this book all about formation, what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, and whether you agree with it or disagree with it, I think wherever you might be on the theological spectrum, you've had to wrestle with what Dallas has said at some level. Again, if you've been thinking about this in the last 2 decades, just rich stuff. He also has a book that is explicitly about the practices and the disciplines, the spirit of the disciplines here, where he goes into many of these practices in more depth. Another book, one of my all-time favorites, You Are What You Love by James Smith. James Smith, a wonderful thinker, and I have stolen liberally from his language. His language about formation and being formed into a way of life very much comes from that book. It's much shorter, by the way, than The Divine Conspiracy, so that is a good thing. Now, sharp left turn from theology into more practical stuff. There's a great book called The Power of Habit. This guy looks at a lot of different sort of sociological phenomenon, but how they represent the patterns of habits and how those are ingrained in our brains, how our brains sort of respond to the power of habit. And again, not coming at it from a theological perspective, but tons of great insight for these disciplines and practices that we're trying to implement into our rhythms in life. And then finally, The Power of Habit by James Clear. This book, much more accessible than the one I just showed you, but again, very much the same idea and a lot of really practical things there that you can apply to our practices and spiritual disciplines. All right. Happy Friday, end of another week. We did it. We got through. Sunday is coming in 2 days. Happy reading, everybody. Grace and peace.